Start with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayat. Jai Ho. Here we go. Okay. Tvaya Paramakalyana Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Smarito Bhagavan Adya Devo Narayano Mama. Synonyms: Tvaya, by you; Parama, supremely; Kalyanaha, blissful; Punya, very pious; Shravana, hearing; Kirtanaha, and chanting, about whom; Smaritaha, brought to memory; Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord; Adya, today; Deva, Deva Narayana, Lord Narayan; Mama, my. Translation: Today you have made me remember my Lord, the supremely blissful personality of Godhead Narayana. The Supreme Lord is so auspicious that whoever hears and chants about him becomes completely pious. Purport: Srila Jiva Goswami has stated, Narayanas tadrisha dharme madhya guru rupo Narayanarshihi. The word Narayana in this verse refers to the incarnation of Godhead Narayana Rishi, who acted as Narada's spiritual master in this dharma. Srila Jiva Goswami has also pointed out, Smarita iti Krishnopasana veshena tasyapi vismarannat. The word smarita, he is often brought back to memory, indicates that because of Narada's absorption in the worship of Krishna, he had forgotten Lord Narayana. In other words, if intense engagement in devotional service makes one sometimes forget the personality of Godhead, by Krishna's arrangement, such a sincere servitor will again be reminded of the personality of Godhead. Om Jnanatirminandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai, so thank you for having me. What an incredible verse. One of the first things that stuck out to me was this very common or very notable phrase here, Punya Shravana Kirtanaha, which to those who are familiar with the second chapter of the first canto will stick out to them because we have the verse there, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridantyaksto Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsitam, in which it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the Paramatma within everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses a desire for material enjoyment from the heart of one who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So what a cheat code, right? I remember when I was growing up, played a lot of video games, and we would always go and find cheat codes. And back then, you'd like go to the internet, write them down, circle, square, X, up, down, left, right, and then you could fly or something like that. And it's kind of the same thing here. That simply hearing, you develop love for Krishna, which is the highest goal of life. Um, and this is not just a one-off concept. This is actually one of the main cruxes of our entire philosophy, of the entire system that's been presented to us as means to attain the perfection of life. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayadahoitikam. That by performing devotional service, and we all know that the main activity of devotional service is hearing, specifically hearing and chanting, then one becomes free from all attachments and develops a knowledge of Krishna and how to attain him. And so, what an incredible benefit there. It's so simple you could miss it in one sense, because um, I think, especially for me, we want something more complicated, right? Whenever we try to attain something grandiose, typically there's a long and drawn out process through which that we need to apply in order to attain it. But in this case, no, simply hearing. Shunile kandibe chitte aginadidosh, Krishna gada preme habi, paibe santosh. Krishnadas Kaviraj says in the Adi Lila, simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all faults of ignorance, and thus one will develop deep love for Krishna. It's really that simple. Somehow or other, Krishna set it up that way. It's Kali Yuga. We have, shorter attention span, smaller ability for austerities. We can't do these grandiose performances of yajna or go to the mountains or anything like that. So what do we have to do? It's very simple. We simply hear submissively about Krishna. And in that way, we develop love for Krishna. We develop knowledge about Krishna, and our attachments to the material world are loosened and ultimately cut out completely. So what a nice thing, right? I can't believe it myself. Um, so many anarthas are there in me personally. Um, but it's a fact. It is a fact that just by hearing, what actually happens is we develop a taste for a higher subject matter. We develop a taste specifically for Krishna and performing devotional service to Krishna. And once we get that taste for something higher, then the other things just seem um, stupid. It just seemed obviously lacking any value, right? So it's not necessarily that we need to do mental gymnastics, that we hear, we gain knowledge, okay, that material activities are useless, and then by that knowledge, then we're able to give them up, right? Almost everybody who has a religious inkling, understands that already, that materialistic activities are useless. But so very few of them, myself included, are able to actually give up those material activities. So how does one give up those activities? By developing a taste for spiritual activities, developing an attachment for Krishna. And by that taste for Krishna's service and by that attachment to Krishna, then we don't care about material. There seems to be no value in them. There seems to be no juice anymore. Right now in our chat, our reading of a chapter a day of Gita that my spiritual master insists we perform, we're reading the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. And there it is said that Krishna becomes the moon and supplies the juice of life to all vegetables. And what an incredible little phrase there, the juice of life to all vegetables. But that's a fact. Krishna supplies the juice of life to vegetables, and that juice of life is also there in hearing about Krishna, and it's not really there in materialistic activities. So once we get a taste of that juice of life, we don't want the juice of the trash can that comes from materialistic activities, and we can very easily identify it as such, right? All of the good qualities of the demigods become manifest in us simply by performing devotional service. There's another verse there that Adi Purush Prabhu taught me. Yas yasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinchana sarver gunais tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kato mahadguna manodate nasati dhavato bai. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, or renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this should be our goal, is to develop these good qualities. And how do we develop them? We don't develop them by racking our brains for some kind of philosophical understanding of the way the world works. We don't develop them by our endeavor to give up bad qualities alone, by, say, identifying them. We don't develop them by performing some psychological treatment on ourselves or going to therapy, although that could be, in some cases, beneficial. But we develop them by developing our love for Krishna. And we develop our love for Krishna by hearing about Krishna, hearing about Lord Chaitanya, and so on and so forth. So, in any class, I was just thinking, in any class, what is the essence of all instruction? And that essence of all instruction is very clear. It's given in the essence of all instruction, the nectar of instruction, and where Rupa Goswami says, Tannama Rupa Charitari Sukirtana Nusmrityo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyojya Tishtan Brajeta Ranuragi Jananugami Kalat Kalam Nayada Kila Mityupadesha Saram. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braj, Goloka Brindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are attached to his devotional service. So here it is. How can we how can we escape the miseries, the attachments, the aversions, the all of the different ailments that are plaguing us here in the material world? We simply leave the material world. We no longer reside here. And how do we do that? We just move. We pack up our things, we get the U-Haul, and we go to Goloka Vrindavan Dham here. We reside in Braj. And how do we do that? I might say, but that's I mean, how could we just leave our current status, our current mentality? How could we leave all of our attachments, all of our aversions behind and just go to Goloka? It seems impossible, unreasonable, but no. Here it said, if we utilize our full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form qualities, and eternal pastimes, it's not that it's not that one day then by doing that we leave the world and reside in Goloka Vrindavan. It says in this way, one one resides in Goloka Vrindavan. By performing these activities, one then leaves the material world. They get the U-Haul, they pack their things, the boxes, all of that, and they reside in Goloka Vrindavan just by hearing about it. And what happens if we don't do that? Then it's described, we start to imagine injustices. We start to become too political. We start to become too attached to the mundane things of this material world, and we forget the ultimate source of everything. We forget basic Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktadam Yagitapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that Krishna is the supreme controller and the supreme enjoyer. Everything is operating under Krishna's guidance, right? So different people were elected to different offices, and some of us may have been a little disappointed, or some of us may have been elated, but in either case, we have to understand that Krishna is there. Krishna is behind all of that. That regardless of whatever happens in the material world, Krishna is the supreme controller. And the way to remember that, the way to actually live in that understanding, the way to live in Goloka Vrindavan, is by hearing about Krishna sufficiently. Just by that hearing, one develops love for him. One develops all the qualities of the demigods. One develops knowledge of Krishna, causeless knowledge and detachment from the world, simply by hearing about Krishna. In regards to hearing, one of my realizations has been that we should hear a little bit more than we're comfortable hearing. That's what works for me. It should be to the extent that when we are about to start the reading or the hearing, that we have a little sense of, oh wow, a little bit of pullback from the mind and the senses. Like this is gonna be a little bit, this is a commitment. There should be a little bit of stretch, a little bit of discomfort, not too much. Too much, it becomes literally impossible, according to our level of advancement, and and then we become inconsistent. But if there's a little bit of stretch there, then we gradually become more limber, right? Just like any stretch. If there's a little bit of discomfort there when we're stretching, then gradually that muscle or tendon or whatever it is becomes loosened, and we become more able to exercise that muscle and develop. But if there's too much of a stretch, then we can pull a hammy, or hurt ourselves. So if we're just in a little bit of that stretch zone, then then we'll be able to get a lot out of it without hurting ourselves. On the other hand, if we don't stretch enough, then we could hurt ourselves in that way as well. So a little bit into the stretch zone is what has been effective for me personally, and it keeps us on edge. I remember one time I was at a home program and Jayadvaita Swami came, and there were some brand new people there, and he was speaking, and they were kind of mesmerized by him, and they asked him at towards the end of his talk, where do you live? And he responded, on the edge, live on the edge. And I thought, yeah, that's really good. And that's the way to be. If we get too comfortable, then then we get fat, we get lazy, we get out of shape, we get there's no excitement, there's no accomplishments, there's no goals that we're striving to meet. There's no discomfort, um, there's no excitement that comes from meeting our goals. And if we can stay in that stretch zone and that edge, when it comes to hearing, especially, we'll see at the end of our session, we feel uplifted, we feel ecstatic, we feel inspired, we feel like a shot in the arm, that we're fortified. We feel like we're in Goloka Vrindavan, and we are, as Rupa Goswami says here. So my favorite thing to read, personally, a little show and tell, is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And partially because it's so fun. It's so fun and funny. And the devotees are just so happy to be with Lord Chaitanya. And they're running around. They're going to Jagannath Puri. They're going to the Ganges. And Advaita Acharya and Lord Nityananda are messing with each other. And Nityananda's messing with Lord Chaitanya. And so there's this real brotherhood. There's this camaraderie. There's a sisterhood. You hear about um, the women there who were incredible devotees of Lord Chaitanya, like Sachi Mata, and I believe it's Raghava Pandit's sister who made these incredible preparations for Lord Chaitanya that are glorified for half a chapter. And there's just so much loving exchange there. In that the Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives these big, grandiose examples of devotional service. Somebody turns into a deer and then, comes back to human form, starts practicing. Somebody, falls in love with this, heavenly singer, and she comes down, and then, he's runs after these goats. It kind of gets a little complicated, but it's still illustrating the principle. But in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, these principles of love for Krishna and how that manifests in service to him and in service to the devotees, it's all laid out in a very easily digestible way and in a very ecstatic way. It's like the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is there and is playing out in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And so for me, it's very accessible and that's very inspiring. Um, and it's just funny. It's just super funny. Different pastimes. One of my favorite ones that we just read recently was of Jagadananda Pandit, and Jagadananda Pandit had this like intense devotion for Lord Chaitanya. Really loved him and wanted to serve him, and there's an instance in he didn't loved him and wanted to serve him to the point where Lord Chaitanya um, was obligated to accept his love and his service, despite the fact that it might be a little, um, it may, it may on occasion go against the principles of sannyas. Like for example, um, there was one time in which Jagadananda Pandit made this bed for Lord Chaitanya, and it was very comfortable and soft. And Lord Chaitanya was thinking like this is too nice, and what'll people say about me? And it's not really proper for a sannyasi to be sleeping on this comfortable bed. But it's described that in his mind, Lord Chaitanya was fearful that Lord Chaitanya was fearful of Jagadananda Pandit and what he would do or what he would say if he refused this bed. And part of that was because earlier on, Jagadananda had brought this pot of really nice scented oil for Lord Chaitanya to put on his body as an act of devotion. He had carried it for some distance and he brought it to Lord Chaitanya, and the servant gave it. He gave it to the servant to give to Lord Chaitanya, and and Lord Chaitanya said, I can't use this. I'm a sannyasi. People will think I'm some kind of tantric sannyasi. They'll think I'm into, something illicit, if I'm wearing these scented oils on my body and I'm young, he's in his 20s at the time. And so he said, just give it to Lord Jagannath, and then maybe we'll take it as prasadam. And so the servant informed uh, informed Jagadananda about the oil and how Lord Chaitanya had to refuse it. And Lord Chaitanya called Jagadananda in and was going to explain to him about, what had happened. And Jagadananda had the oil in his hands at that time. And Lord Chaitanya said, I'm sorry about the fact that we can't really accept your oil. And Jagadananda Pandit said, what oil? And he threw the oil on the ground and broke it in the pot in front of Lord Chaitanya. And then it's described he went back to his room and lay down on the bed and just started chanting on his beads while he was like laying down and became a little upset. But it's just like outlandish, kind of funny, fun stuff like that. So, um, you can find whatever suits you in your devotional service. Some people prefer Krishna's Leela. Some people prefer the stories of the Bhagavatam, um, Prabhupada Leelamrita. There's a whole wealth of options out there. But in regard to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I did find this little compilation of all of the different benefits that Krishnadas Kaviraj lists usually at the ends of chapters in terms of what happens when you read CC. So I'll just read a couple of them. So this is at the end of 17th chapter of the Adi Lila. Anyone who describes or hears any part of this elaborate subject will very soon receive the causeless mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Pretty good. At the end of the 21st chapter of the Madhya Lila, if anyone gets an opportunity to hear about the sweetness of Krishna in this chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he will certainly be eligible to float in the transcendently blissful ocean of love of God. Not a bad one, right? Wouldn't mind it. End of the 22nd chapter, whoever hears this description of the process of practical devotional service very soon attains shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna in love and affection. Hey, isn't that the goal of the whole thing? What we're doing here? Attain shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna in love and affection, devotional service. Here it is. Just hear this description of the process of practical devotional service as it's described in the 22nd chapter of the Madhya Lila. In the 23rd chapter, whoever hears these instructions given to Sanatana Goswami by the Lord comes very soon to realize love of God, Krishna. There it is. That's the goal. Here's how to attain it. Mm, let's see. There was one other really good one I liked. I think it's this one. All the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should, this is Madhya Lila, end of chapter 25. All the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should go to that lake and remaining always under the shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, become swans and chakravaka birds in those celestial waters. This is a reference to the lake um, of the pastimes of the Lord in the previous verse right there. They should go on rendering service to Lord Sri Krishna and enjoy life perpetually. In this way, all miseries will be diminished, the devotees will attain great happiness, and there will be jubilant love of God. And the last one I'll read at the end of 25. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are full of nectar, and the pastimes of Lord Krishna are like camphor. When one mixes these, they taste very sweet. By the mercy of the pure devotees, whoever tastes them can understand the depths of that sweetness. So pretty good, pretty easy, almost too easy if you ask me, too nice. And this is my favorite song. If we're going to continue our show and tell. It's called Bajare Amar by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it talks about how just by remembering the different associates of Lord Chaitanya, then one develops love for Krishna. Pretty nice. I'll just read a couple little stanzas here. Just remember the associates of Lord Chaitanya, named Srivas Thakur, Haridas Thakur, Murari Gupta, and Mukunda Datta. Oh, in deep love for Lord Gora, you should remember, just remember the great personalities, Srivas Thakur and Haridas Thakur. Just remember Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatan, Jiva, and the two Raghunaths. Oh, if you are engaged in worshipping Lord Krishna, just remember the two great souls, Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Just remember Raghava Pandit, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sarup Damodar Goswami, and Ramananda Roy. Oh, if you really seek love for Krishna, just remember Sarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Roy. Just remember Srila Kavi Karnapur and all his family members, especially his father, Shivananda Sen. Oh, always remember Sri Kavi Karnapur and his family. Just remember all the sadhus who follow the path of Sri Rupa Goswami and who are absorbed in the ecstasy of bhajan. Oh, if you actually want residence in the land of Braj, just remember the sadhus who are followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. So, attaining love for Krishna, not as hard as it seems. We just have to remember Krishna through hearing about him. You remember Lord Chaitanya, remember Lord Chaitanya's associates by hearing about them. And this isn't some sentimental thing, right? This is across all the different scriptures throughout the canon of our text. It is very clearly stated by the authorities that just hearing about Krishna, just hearing these transcendental subject matters as they're presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the nectar of devotion, nectar of instruction, etc., then what happens? We develop love for Krishna. The goal of our life is attained. So if we could do that, if we can remain a little bit in the stretch zone and hear every day, then gradually we develop a love for Krishna. We develop a taste for these subject matters. We develop an access point to that juice of life that Krishna is providing. And we start to recognize all the materialistic enjoyments of the world as the juice of the garbage can at the bottom of the bin. So, thank you very much. We'll see if there's any questions or comments or corrections. Yes, Min.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much for a wonderful class. Um, I really like this topic of hearing the scriptures and the pastimes and that developing love and devotional service to God. I was wondering, so we heard a lot about hearing. Um, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how to hear. We hear often from Srila Prabhupada to hear attentively and he'll even say, hear ardently. And Krishnadas Kaviraj would say to hear the Chaitanya Charitamrita with faith. Um, my feeling is that I hear that. I hear the instructions as to how to hear, but I can't artificially produce those sentiments, those feelings towards hearing.
Hmm.
So even to get to that point of hearing such a way, do you have any recommendations as to how to get there so that we hear in such a way that it really touches us and transforms us?
Mm.
Thank you.
Adi Prabhu, you have your hand up. You want to answer that one?
Well, we pray to show Prabhupada what to say. What Shastra says is that if your activity, your work, regardless of occupation, does not provoke an attraction for hearing the messages of Vasudeva, then your labor is useless. So what we do in devotional service apparently provokes an attraction to hear the messages of Vasudeva. When we read Bhagavatam in the evening, um, I read the translation and then I say, thank you, Prabhupada, thank you, Prabhupada, thank you, Prabhupada. This is your gift to us. Thank you so much. And then I'm reading, of course, there's bliss and there's satisfaction and there's purification, but we're trying to engage in this hearing in this class or reading to please Krishna, right? We're trying to please Krishna. So if we're engaging in devotional service, it will provoke an attraction for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. And if we read in the mood of, I hope this will please you, Prabhupada, I hope this will please you, Krishna, by coming to class, it's an offering, right? But when somebody was saying to Radhanath Swami, oh, the classes, some of them are boring. Can we get better classes? Radhanath Swami, that devotee said, we can think that this is for my entertainment, for my benefit, or we can attend the class as a tapasya, as an austerity, as an offering. We're trying to please Krishna, even though the benefit will be there for us. That's a byproduct. Anyway, that's a little bit of something.
Yeah, it's good, Prabhu. Thank you. So Adi Prabhu is referring to verse 1 to 18. Nashtra prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. And where it said, by rendering service to the pure devotee and regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, then one develops a kata ruchi, one develops a taste for hearing. And so you're right, it can't be artificially forced. In one sense, we can try, to hear devotionally, to hear in a mood of love and service and acceptance and to really open our hearts. That's definitely a part of it. But the other part of it is by rendering service to a pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, like Adi Purush Prabhu, like our spiritual masters. By rendering that service, it said at the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, one develops a taste for hearing. So what that means is, yeah, you come to hear in that devotional mood and can really drink it in. Ganesham Prabhu, one time, remember hearing him say that these books aren't meant to be cut up and digested in that way. They're meant to be drunk. Just kind of tilt your head back and take it all in. Um, So that's one side of it, is to kind of try to suspend disbelief that may arise. But in order to really enter the text, like you're talking about doing, it requires service, devotional service to the pure devotee. That's what it says in the Bhagavatam. And then we get that taste for hearing and um, can hear properly.
Thank you very much.
And
Prabhu.
Angel wants to say something.
Angel.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you were talking about moving, are you saying that that devotees should like all move out of, for example, New York City and all move to New Britain or some type of devotee community, or was that just meant like allegorically?
Allegorically, yeah, it's this um, Rupa Goswami is saying in that verse that one should reside in Goloka Vrindavan. And the way you do that isn't by moving physically, but by hearing and chanting 24 hours a day. So that's what I was referring to. You move by hearing and chanting 24 hours a day. And that way you move to Goloka Vrindavan. You live there.
Okay, because I will say that when I was in New Verdun, I did find it to be to really elevate you and to feel somewhat more spiritual than I am normally. So I would still say that there's something to maybe not move there, but to sometimes visit there to uplift you spiritually.
Yeah, Prabhupada did say we should visit the Dham at least once a year. And so luckily we have some Dhams in the United States now by his grace and by some of his servants, his great disciples' grace as well, like New Vrindavan.
It says that when wherever topics of the spiritual world are discussed, wherever we're glorifying Krishna, it invokes the atmosphere, like into atmosphere. And the other day I was listening to one of Srila Prabhupada's class, and it was on YouTube. And sometimes there's a thing where all of a sudden the class stops and you're listening to some soap commercial or somebody trying to sell, some kind of deodorant or something, and it's like, oh my God, what the heck? And you can skip it, and then you go right back to pop. And just going back and forth like that, it's so radically, contrasted. I was one time in a movie theater and really absorbed in the film, and then all of a sudden there was the exit doors opening out to the fire escape, and some workmen opened up the doors, and it was daylight, and it just completely destroyed the absorption in the film. It's just, what's real is the glorification of Krishna, and what's unreal is really just kind of some kind of ridiculous. Going right to the soap commercial after hearing from Prabhupada, but I almost fainted. Okay, I'm sorry to talk so long. We'll go to
Yeah.
Prabhupada.
Yeah, good point. And you're right in that wherever that glorification is going on, that's a spiritual place. And then it also says Goloka Premadan Harinam Sankirtan, that wherever the Sankirtan is happening, then Goloka itself, the prema of Goloka, the essence of Goloka descends and lives there. So yeah, the
Fantastic.
Sankirtan.
Thank you so much for such a nice class.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you, Anupam Prabhu. Srimad Bhagavatam says it's not meant to be just read. It's meant to be, like you said, drunk, and it's meant to be lived. And when you apply those principles in real life, then you naturally become dependent on the Bhagavatam.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's just a nice fairy tale, some self-help, feel-good type of parable. But when you try to depend on Krishna in practical life, when you try to apply Srimad Bhagavatam in real life, you become dependent on it. And it becomes a necessity because you take some risks, trust in the Bhagavatam. Will Krishna carry what I lack? Will I be protected if I proceed with this? And then naturally you'll develop dependency on the Bhagavatam. And from being a theory or some scientific thing, it becomes a necessity, like daily bread. That happens only when you try living the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
And then naturally, when you come to class, if you live in the Bhagavatam, you come to class and you're curious, what is Krishna going to say? Because you are risking your wealth, you're risking real things by applying the Bhagavatam. And then naturally, your desire to hear what Krishna has to say in the Bhagavatam will be very strong because you depend on it. Because if you
Yeah.
depend on other things, on your own judgment, on politicians, on all kinds of worldly things, then it's just a nice theory, a sweet fairy tale. But when you really try to live it, you become dependent on it. I'm repeating myself, but that's the point I once heard. And it's in addition to what other devotees have said in regards to Min's question, how to listen attentively. I see Paula and Bhima are raising their hand. They're holding hands and raising them at the same time. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. We also, like as in holding hands and raising them. I mean, isn't that what Sankirtan is, right? All together now. We got to judge by our joy. that that when you do actually try to see the world, um, uh, when you try to see the world through the lens of the Bhagavatam, meaning almost like you're in that world where Krishna is, and he's running and playing at play in the fields of the Lord, at play in the field of the Lords, and that we see in the Bhagavad Gita. Anupam, maybe you can elaborate on this more scripturally, but when Krishna talks about the field and the knower of the field, so we understand that, you know, like in the movie The Matrix, you know, we understand that we are in another world, and yet, if we see, as the Bhagavatam does, it's the light of the Bhagavat, the even the illustrations in the Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada commissioned and watched over and accepted, uh, those those illustration or those paintings, they're all lights into this other world. And so when we see our daily world running around New York City or living in the countryside or whatever, if you see your world through the lens of Krishna's pastimes, you know, when we run up against things that are part of our purification, and that purification is Krishna growing up and defeating all these demons that want to take us down, that want to take Krishna as a baby out of our heart and take Krishna as the cynosure of our attention. Um, and then we go throughout our day, and just to wind this up, we go throughout our so-called pedestrian day, our mundane world. We go out into the mundane world, and we're still shining a little bit from the morning Bhagavatam class, and then the next thing you know, we get wrapped up in cares and concerns of the world, and those cares and concerns of the world are distracting, just like Adi Purush saying about the commercial that all of a sudden comes in the middle of a Prabhupada lecture or a reading of the Bhagavatam. Um, you know, all of a sudden the cares of the world comes in, and then you get fearful. And then fear being the worst of the sins, kamsa, fear of material nature, fear that I'm going to lose. Um, that comes in, and that's the demon that if we just run to Krishna, Krishna will drag him by the hair down off his throne of our heart and knock him upside the head a couple of times. So that's how the Bhagavatam works, you know, that you see that Krishna is at work in our lives, doing the self same thing to the demons that keep us from being pure lovers of God. Anyways, that's what I said. That's what I had heard from a myriad of sources, like yourself, Anupam. If you could break open I am there's the field and the knower of the field.
Um, yeah, I'm that particular subject, honestly, I'd probably prefer to pass it to Nityananda Chandra. I haven't studied that section deeply, the field and the knower of the field. Maybe we could save it for the afterglow, though I'm not sure. Was it time or the curtains opening, Adi, bro?
Yeah,
Okay,
curtains opening.
couldn't hear.
Jai, welcome to the Afterglow, dear devotees. Uh, Sadhvi, we want to hear the story about your tattoo.
Uh, I thought I would send it in the WhatsApp. I went to the store. I didn't know what it was. And then I went inside and I asked, what is it here for a salon? Because it was the only chair and there was nothing, no picture, nothing. And there was a guy came and I immediately, when I saw him, I said, okay, this book is for him. So I said, you know what? I have some books that I know that you're going to be interested in reading. And he said, okay. And I said, I'm sorry, what is it here for? What do you do here? He says, I'm a tattoo artist. And I said, oh, then it must be interesting for you to read about the body, our body, and so on and so on. And then he says, okay, if you accept me to tattoo your hand, then I will take your book. I said, okay. So it was exchange between giving tattoo, he wanted to give me tattoo and I give him the book. And it turned out at the end of every tattoo, whatever tattoo I have done, at the end of it, I got to distribute about 35 books to to him and his friend. Yes, there were 4 persons, and I gave to all of them about 35 books I have distributed. I have very interesting video where when he's tattooing me, we listen to kirtan. We listen to Prabhupada chanting. It's very interesting. I will send it in the WhatsApp chat.
Yes, Sadhvi, please. You are a surrendered soul. You stop at nothing when it comes to distributing Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yes,
This is
it was very
how-
interesting. It
Thank
felt very good to do it. Yes, I will send the picture in the WhatsApp chat.
Okay, preach boldly. That's about Sadhvi.
Yeah.
Sadhvi stops at nothing.
I'm old. I don't have to be ashamed or shy. I'm just open and say,
That's right. That's right, Sadhvi. Thank you for this testimony of dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission. We see all these flying hearts. Thank you very much. Would anyone like to speak to glorify Krishna? If not, Annabelle, I see Annabelle is ready. Annabelle is always ready. She's on standby. Annabelle, please recite the mantra as loud as you can. Bring Isaiah next to you if you can.
I'm ready. Hello.
Isaiah, hold it. What's that turban? Who gave it to you?
We just had some Hattie things, and Annabelle gave this one to me, and she has a white one.
Cool, cool, sweet. I want the same. Can you send it to me? To me and Jeffrey Eckler. Can you send two? All co-hosts should wear a turban. Okay, go ahead, Isaiah Annabelle.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you very much, dear devotees. This is so pleasing
Bye.
to hear such sincere recitation. Okay, have a wonderful day. Happy Thursday. We love you. We need you. Thank you for your association. Hare Krishna.
Oh, you sent the steak. That's good. Bye.